Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to season 2 of Conversations in Pop Culture. And before I bring on my guest, I do want to remind everybody there is a bunch of links up above. So if you like what you hear in this podcast, Facebook Live, YouTube, Facebook, on Twitch, or you catch the replay, obviously it is super important to click those links. There's a Buy Me a Coffee. Obviously, we're going to be talking about ink marketing. If you're running a Kickstarter, there's going to be probably a bunch of information in here that may or may not help you. Hopefully, it's going to help you and get your project funded. So without further ado, I'm bringing on my guest, Kevin Guillotte. Hopefully, I got the name right, from Ink Marketing, the NCS Live TV, which is No Signal Comics, I believe. And so welcome to the show.
Thank you much. Yeah, well, a pleasure to be here, man. And yeah, you got the name right. A lot of people have to struggle with it. I've been called Gillette, Guillotine, and I was like, hey, look, if I'm famous in history for the guillotine thing, or if I'm connected to the Gillette fortune, I guess that's okay. So I don't kick off either one of those. I accept them. I answer to just about anything.
Yeah, no, I'm very happy I got the name right, because that means we're at least going somewhere in the right direction here. And one of the things, and the reason why I wanted to actually speak to you, is that obviously I'm familiar with some of the work you've done, some of the projects and the Kickstarters you've helped to get funded, but I feel that a lot of people in the comic world, and in particular Kickstarter world and crowdfunding, don't really know how to get their projects funded and struggle a lot. And one of my last interviews was with Tyler Carpenter. We spent 40 minutes talking about this. And so I kind of want to know how you came into marketing, because that is something that you're helping a lot of comic creators with, is getting funded and building their audience and getting attention to their projects. And obviously Kickstarter is a very complicated entity right now.
Yeah, they are. They when I get off interviews, when I say interviews, when I'm actually going through with clients and actually breaking down what it all takes from behind the scenes, a lot of them, you get this deer in the headlight look and their mouth dropped, and 98% of them go, man, I didn't realize that much went into it. And they don't, and it's just, not to sound cliche, but you don't know what you don't know. Anything from first-time creators, which we're extremely happy to help, get on the scene. We've helped 10 first-time creators make their mark and actually get into the comic business, and we'll get a little bit of that, all the way up to seasoned veterans that are like, hey, look, we need someone to step in and take care of it so we can get back to creating. You guys take care of the campaign, take care of the direction, and that's what we love. We'll do it on both ends and a lot in the middle. But yeah, it's definitely complicated, and we break it down for everybody and show them a couple different options.
And then obviously we're going to get into that in a second here, but even how did this form and how did you come into this? Because it's a very, I'm sure it's an interesting story on that, because obviously you're very comic centric, but a lot of what you can do can apply to other things on Kickstarter as well. But I'm super curious, why comics, how do you get into it, and all that stuff.
Yeah, it's and I like that word, comic centric. That's really, that's a cool way to kind of coin it. I'm actually it actually goes back to the sign you see above my head, which is NSC Live TV. And the play on words with that is No Signal Comics, because the TV is off air. So being a virtual TV station, there's no real literal signal. So coming from the TV and that industry and stuff, I kind of had some fun with it. So I was like, we're just going to put the TV off air and go with it. And we have some fun commercials that play off of that. But that's what started about a little over 5 years ago. And the quick version of that story is I was in Colorado, and I had a lot of time because I worked 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. So I was hunting around for good shows to buy comics, and was having a hard time with it because it is an ocean right out there to try to find a source to do that. And I was getting frustrated. I was talking with a buddy of mine, and I mentioned it to my wife, and she said, well, you have the background in that. So I attribute all of this to her, because she said, just go build one. I said, you know what? I think I'll do that. So I started off with No Signal Comics with 5 channels, and just beat the bushes. We'll start to talk to comic shops and toy stores and all kind of people about doing live sales of their product. And that 5 turned into over 200 almost overnight as far as channels. So then I had to go in and start doing quality control, because that's what I do, And I said, well, this channel is really kind of putting out the bad foot forward. They're doing stuff on air. They're cussing on kids shows. And I started really kind of structuring it grew so fast, I had to structure what the standards were going to be. And it started going with that. So like I said, that's and then after it got up on its feet, COVID hit. So it had been already kind of percolating for a couple years. And then when COVID hit, I had stores coming to me and saying, look, we normally come on once or twice a week. Our doors are shut. We're not an essential business. Can we come on more? How much is that going to cost us? And I made an official statement. I said, I'm not going to run the rates up on any of this. We have the staff to be able to take care of you. We're all in this together. We all have to come out of this on the other side. So, and I sent out a letter to all the people in the channel and said, look, come on every night if you want to. We can take care of it. And we did. There's actually a show that's going on right now. That's one of the first shows that started with us, which is over at Kapow. And, they have a show every Tuesday night. They have a wonderful show. And they're one of the ones that wrote us a letter and said, man, our business would have been done if you wouldn't have had this platform for us to sell on. So that's how it all started. And then that kind of shifted into seeing this niche for a way to market Kickstarters, because I watched some do well, some not do so well. Well, that was, I soon noticed that creators needed help. So I took the background that I have of doing marketing for large banks, casinos, telecom, hospitals, these big marketing plans, and adapting that to comics. So I got to really give credit to creators that invested. When I say invested in me time-wise early on, and gave me a shot. People like Stephen Butler, Monty Michael Moore, Brian Silverback. Those guys were some of the first to say, yeah, go ahead and do a campaign for us and let's see what happens. And it's grown from there, Kickstarter by Kickstarter, bit by bit. So it's just we love what we do.
And there's a lot to break down. So I definitely want to talk about the live stuff and the live, stuff, because obviously that's more my background. I'm a comic book investor by trade. It's a big side hustle. It's very lucrative for me. I'm building my own product out from that entire thing. And I'm more than happy to explain what that is. It's basically teaching the basics of comic book investing, because there's a lack of education in that sector tremendously. There's a lot of great people give great advice, but they don't give the basics. And so that's what I'm building out for everybody, and that's going to be like a 25-hour class. So when that comes out, everybody buckle up, because you're going to learn a lot. And you're probably going to hate me and never want to hear my voice ever again, but that's a different discussion for a different day. But what was this like, really sort of marketing and saving a lot of comic shops, and also giving a platform, because a bunch of people were dying out there, and in a lot of ways, even going further, COVID saved a bunch of comic shops too. And I know that sounds messed up, but a lot of it, when DC and Marvel and Diamond shut down, a lot of shops got to sell through their backlog. And actually,
the other thing that spun out of that, which a lot of people don't realize, but in talking with comic shops every day, as you pick up on it, is when your doors are closed, collections aren't walking in the door. So now you're at the mercy, and there's no cons to go to, so you can't go pick up books at cons. You don't have collections walking in the door. You're selling, but your stock of books is shrinking. So that's why one of the other things that we did for a long time, and we still do from time to time, is we were selling a lot of books, going out and finding collections, flipping them, selling them back to the stores so they could have some sort of inventory to keep going. I was very fortunate, because for 2 years, Mile High Comics was my local comic shop. So that's an experience in and of itself to have them as your local. So that was very spoiling.
And so obviously that's something that I think that I wanted to touch upon, because in a lot of ways, a lot of businesses got saved, and a bunch of businesses probably also copied some of the model that you outlaid and gave birth to, because obviously I picked up a bunch of live sales, and then a bunch of other companies have now adapted it. And I know I'm a big Zenesco fan, they're not leaving that model anytime soon. And I know Ralph Tedesco was just on my show, and I know that they've openly said it, and I think a bunch of people aren't leaving that model anymore. So what is that like? Because this is now becoming a main staple, and what is that like? It's a whole new business in a lot of ways, even past COVID, when we get past all of COVID.
It's definitely it's been fun because I never say anything we do is the first of its kind, because there's always going to be somebody out there that says they were before. So in saying that, we can always say we're one of the first to do something, and we were one of the first to put on a virtual Comic Con. And that Comic Con was right about the time when MegaCon went down when COVID hit. We watched Emerald Con go down, and then Dragon Con was kind of shaken, and then when MegaCon went down, we saw our chance. And actually, MegaCon and uh, Dragon Con both backed our virtual con, which was awesome. And we did 56 hours of straight con. We had cosplayers, we had live sales, we had everything set up as if you were going to a con. And we did 56,000, we did 56 hours, and we did 106,000 hits within 56 hours. So it was a lot of fun. We're going to do another one. And then all of a sudden, a bunch of them started popping up. We didn't charge for ours. We just wanted to see if it could be done. And the back office was crazy because we were basically handing off the baton from one creator to another to keep the feed going for that long. Because Facebook comes in and shuts you off after 4 hours, so we just kept paying. And then, of course, we're taking naps in the background and are putting on shows like Stan Lee's last panel appearance or something where we could take a quick nap and jump back up and keep going again. So that was a lot of fun. That was our first endeavor in the full on could this be done. Um, but then we, like I said, we've kind of shifted around and been really focused on indies. That's been our mainstay for the past little over a year now. It's been really with the Kick It
So
project that we
let's
had.
let's talk about that because I think we got to back up slightly because obviously Inked marketing is the entire package, and then Kick It is sort of really the entire thing with Kickstarter, and it's a whole bunch of package deal type stuff. And so, how did this even come about? Because obviously, again, as I stated, you can go in a lot of different ways, comic centric wise. But how did you even pick indie and get into indie? I think you mentioned partially that some people gave you an opportunity, but when did you really say, oh, okay, this is our niche and this is what we're going to be doing? Because that's a very sector right now.
It was when the very first talks of a Kickstarter and doing it. Now we had already done some. I'll say that we had already done and helped other creators get some Kickstarters going. But the one that comes to mind, which is the real when the light came on and said this is really a thing, was when we did the one for Monty Michael Moore, and that was for Local Hero One. He had come on one of the panels for that con I mentioned, that virtual con that we had done, and he was on one of the last panels for that show, and he mentioned what he had in his mind about what Local Hero was. And when he told me what it was, I said, "You got to release that book." And he said, "Well, I've had it in my head for years, and I've been." And he tells the story lots of times over, and he's told it in our solutions guide, which we can talk about in a little while. But he he said, "Okay, let's go ahead and give it a go." I said, "All the numbers, all the marketing analysis, everything's pointing to this is time for you to do this." And he stepped out of being a 30-year cover artist into the realm of a creator, and that's a whole different animal. So that Kickstarter, we put a lot into it. We marketed it. It did very well for him. His very first Kickstarter hit over the 50K mark. So that just really blew it out of the water. And that's when I said, okay, that's this could be a thing. Well, he came right back to us and said, the funny thing is, he goes, "Okay, Hotshot, you guys blew this one out of the water. What can you do with an art book?" I said, "Okay." Ran some analysis, ran some numbers, did some comparisons. I said, "I project it to do about this." And he said, "Okay." I said, "Well, if you want us to take a shot at it," he said, "Sure, give it a shot." This was his ninth art book, and that one broke records. It had the most. It made the top 20 on Kickstarter as far as illustration projects. It also broke numbers for him as far as the number of backers for any art book he had done before. So I said, okay, now we're on to something. We have established the comic side, we've established the art book side, and that was 34 Kickstarters ago. So we've done all kind of realm, all different sizes. And I do apologize, like I said, for the scratchiness in my throat, but
How
we've been
dare you?
battling. Yeah, we've been battling smoke up here in Washington State because all the fires in Oregon, and there's a lot in the air, so it's really tearing me up. But so we road tested a couple things during those campaigns. We road tested the road show, the NSC road show, and we road tested Kick It. And then once we ran those through another 10 or 12 Kickstarters, we branded it. And that's when we turned it into literally the NSC Roadshow, which is a collection of podcasts that people can go on. And then Kick It became branded as well. So I basically structured everything like the marketing background that I came from. So I basically said, okay, you can't really do agency work as a TV station. So I pulled that out from underneath the TV station, stood it up as inked, and then moved the TV station off to one side and the virtual radio station basically to the other side. So now I have the agency, the TV, and radio to turn around and support the artist. And it's all for to be able to give them other platforms and avenues to get the word out. So that's kind of the trifecta of the three. And we're working on some other stuff, but that's kind of the three that have been our staple for like I said, over a year now.
So let's talk about inked marketing and Kick It, because obviously there's people who know of you, and then there's a bunch of people who don't. And I'm going to be sharing this into a bunch of Facebook groups and a bunch of indie Kickstarter groups. I'm a member of like 50 of them. I'm sure you're a member of some of them too. But obviously, you do a lot of market analysis. You give advice on a bunch of different sectors of Kickstarter and things that are coming up in Kickstarter, and also just what works, what doesn't work. Obviously, that can take a bunch of different positions, whether that's titles, writing, animation, rewards, stretch goals, when to release a stretch goal. And I'm sure there's 15 other things I could drop, having week 2 dropping rewards, things like that.
It's it's definitely it's a team effort, and I want to go ahead and talk about that for a second. There is on the special thanks side, on the team side. Like I said, I got to definitely give a hats off to my wife Melanie, who's basically she's our general manager. She takes care of things behind the scenes, make sure it keeps things running, make sure everything's in the right groove. And then there's Brandon Bishop, who is also my co-host as far as Atomic Camaraderie, which we'll get into in a second. Richard Boom, and Richard's over there in the Netherlands. We actually take the Kickstarters and go through the structure of them together and make sure that they're structured well, they read well, they're functional. Because there's a lot of mechanics behind the scenes on how a good presentation works.
There's also funnels in which that what for
Yes.
those who don't know, Kickstarter is a gigantic funnel, and if you don't know what a funnel is, you don't understand. Kickstarter is a gigantic funnel that has about anywhere from 5 to 30 to 40 exits at any given point. And so obviously there's a lot of funnelalytics. I love ClickFunnels, and that's how I want to build my entire comic book investing class on. And Kickstarter is a funnel. So when people understand, but most people don't understand that. And that's something that's a big issue with Kickstarter right now. In my view, I've never ran a Kickstarter, but I know what it is.
Yeah. And there's some things too that we send people when we start to when they become a client. And I have a hard time saying the word client because we treat them like family. So when they become an Inc. family member and we take them in, we say, okay, we send them what's a 3 worksheet process. We send them the worksheet and we say, okay, we need to know more about you, about your project, and those kind of things. We take that all in, and that's what we use to do the market analysis. So we'll sit down and figure that out while Richard and I are working on the structure. ESK is working with us, doing some stuff. He helps do stuff with animation. Morgan Quaid's part of the team. He does stuff with animation as well. So that's kind of the core team. And then we have other artists and stuff that bounce in and out, but that's kind of the core, what we call the core team. And once we get that in, we send you the second worksheet. The first one's your homework. After that, you don't have any more homework. The second worksheet is about more of here's how the audiences is structured. And that means you have a center audience. And if you've sold before, that is your ideal market. If you haven't, we have to figure out what that ideal market is. Then the next ring out, and I like the way you said that, you haven't done a Kickstarter, but you know what it is. That means you're in the second ring out. You know how Kickstarter works. We don't have to educate you on that as a consumer. You know what it is. You just haven't noticed this particular creator. Then there's another ring out who is kind of okay. They're comic people, but they've kind of heard about this crowdfunding thing. They know there's an Indiegogo something or other they've heard of, and a Kickstarter, and they may have seen Kickstarter on South Park, when South Park did an episode on what a Kickstarter was, which is hilarious, by the way, if you've never seen it. You got to watch it. If you've never seen it, because they all go out and they start their own Kickstarter.
And then also there's people who, came into Kickstarter just recently because, and I'll give a great example. How I came in, how I came back was because of the book Curse Words. So Curse Words was done by people who were mainstream, who were kickstarting an omnibus version of it. And that's also how people come in, which is, sort of the hybrid between 2 and 3 a little bit. And so obviously people come in very interestingly into Kickstarter. But continue.
There's another one that comes to mind too, and that's why like I said, I give credit to Richard Boone for being part of the team, and then Justin Gray was one of the other creators that came to us and was like, okay, let's see if we can get some stuff going. In Justin's case, exactly what you said. He was mainstream. He was Jonah Hex writer back in the day, and he said, okay, well, he wanted to do books that was everything that he wasn't able to do when he worked for the other two, right? Because he'd worked for both. So his books did really well. He does Spicy Pulp, and he just did Billy the Kid. And that's one of the slides I had sent you. We're really proud of Justin's book. We did Billy the Kid a few months ago as a Kickstarter. And then if you open up the August issue of previews, page 297, bam, there it is. Billy the Kid has been picked up by Blue Juice, and that's in the stores now. You pick up your August. Yeah. You pick up your August issue of previews, hit page 297, and there he is. And so we're really proud of Justin for that book now going and going to be available in comic shops. He's pretty excited about that. We're excited about it, and we're fixing to release another Kickstarter for him, which is Spicy Pulp 6.
And then I was going to bring this up as well, where one of the things also is that you might also have people who have 120,000, people
right.
like the Facebook page. And then it's also how do you leverage that into it, plus gain new audience and audience building, because I hate to say this, and I'm going to say something that might be a little politically incorrect to some degree, but if you have 120,000 people liking your Facebook page, not all those people are active on your Facebook page.
Right. It's a numbers game. It's a sheer numbers game in that sense. And that's whether you're selling widgets, cars, watches, sunglasses, it's all a numbers game when it comes to social media selling. And we kind of came up with this Rubik's Cube of approach of advertising. And that means that through the NSC Roadshow, you're getting put into the backyard of comic-oriented people. So, and it's all different audiences that tune into these shows, and these shows have their, they have fans that follow these shows. So the creator can come on, and I've had several go, man, I don't want to keep saying the same thing. I said, it doesn't matter, because you're not talking to the same audience. You're talking to all these different audiences, 20 different audiences you're talking to, and they're all over the world. So that's one avenue. And these podcasts have been picked on their strengths. Some have large Twitter followings. Some have large Twitch. Some have large Instagram followings. So while you're talking about your comic, the shows that you're not on the NSC Roadshow, we have live ads running on the other ones. So you're getting double exposure, not just in you sitting down, because the best part of it is you get to tell your story. And that's what people want to see. People want to see you talk about your book, and they want to see behind the scenes about the book, how the book was created. They feel engaged and a part of it. So those kind of things, like I'll give you an instance. Frank Forty is a great example. He draws during his talks. So people love watching live draws, There's other books we've done, and we've done all kind of scales of books. I mean, we're talking about heavy hitters down to, guys coming into it. There's a book that Hasm just came out with, Pitter Patter, and they did a lot of behind the scenes and drawing while the book came out, which is great. They're one of the early ones on that came on with us. So it's really finding the niche of who your audience is. That's when all the marketing analysis comes up. And then the third worksheet we put out there is about branding, how to properly brand your comic, your image, and how to stick to the plan, once the plan is laid out, plan the work, work the plan. And don't start, sliding off of it and deviating off of it. And, those kind of things we try to keep people on track. I know one of the people I'm going to talk about in the podcasting here in a second is Chuck Panu, and he's in the NSC Roadshow, but we'd also done some books for him early on. And Chuck's testimonial back to us was we kept him focused. And that was nice to hear, because we're always saying, okay, here's where we're at in the plan. Here's where we need to be. Here's what's coming up. It's laid out for you. It's you have to know where you're going, right, to how to get there. You have to have an end goal and a map to get there. If not, you're just kind of wandering around and just kind of, throwing darts out there.
Yeah, and I think that's where a lot of people fail on Kickstarter, because part of the problem, I think, is that you're creating the book, and then you're getting the artist, and you're doing all the cover work, and you're booking every single cover artist. I mean, from my personal position, I run a podcast. I'm doing 4 interviews a week.
Yeah.
It is a hell of a lot of work to do the research and find that. And then I was supposed to have a guest before, and she had to reschedule till tomorrow night. But I'm waiting here, and then obviously I have to catch up. And she's like, "Oh my God, I got stuck at work. I'm so sorry. I can redo it." And then I got to move things around on my schedule, and people don't understand. And I'm doing an interview is not producing a comic book. It's a whole different ball game in the fact that there's not as many people, because there's just me and my guest. I'm not having to find a printer and things like that. But still, a lot of stuff happens, and so that's why I think a lot of people don't want to do the marketing, because when you're producing all of it, or you're in the middle of producing it, and then you still have to do the marketing, it becomes a nightmare, and then you can get lost very, very quickly.
It does, and you lose focus, and you shift around, and you don't know which way is up. And back to the podcasting for a second. The podcasting side has been fun for me because I got talked into it. I've been a behind the scenes guy for 30 years of being the guy behind the camera, writing the scripts, picking out the shots, figuring out where the camera needed to go, setting up the commercials, the campaigns, the billboards. I've always been the guy in the background, right? I'm an artist by trade. I have a BA in liberal arts, so I'm like any other artist, right? Lock you in a room, poke you with a stick, let you draw, and leave you alone. Right. That's kind of, and any artist out there, I can say that because I'm an artist. That's kind of usually the thing. I'm outgoing anyway because I'm from the South. And as you see, I talk with my hands a lot. So I'm kind of like, Talladega Nights, if you tied my hands up, I'd probably go quiet because I couldn't say anything. So the podcasting thing, I really admired some podcasters. I'm fixing to throw their names out real quick because I have to give them props for this. Brian Wayne from Cheers to Comics, right? Brian was one of the ones I met at Mile High Comics, and he had just started getting into the business. Now we're talking 3 years ago. So he just kind of started to get into the business, and he handed me a sticker because he was the guy that you went to at the counter. If you couldn't find something out in the 250,000 books in the open floor, you went to their specialty counter. He's the guy at the counter. Long hair, black leather jacket, kicking around the keyboard, telling you, "Hey, yeah, I've got Submariner #1. Let me go pull it for you." All right. So I'm buying a lot of books at that time. I'm buying books for customers. I'm walking in with a list. I'm pulling these major books. They were bringing stuff out from the safe. I was buying for the customers. So I got to know. I went religiously to this place every 2 weeks for 2 years. So I got to know these people. It was like Cheers. I walked in, I knew everybody, right? And they knew me. Great, great place. So I watched Brian develop as a podcaster and could see and admire the way he did things. And it made me want to do that. And he was one of the first shows that came on the NSC Roadshow, and he's one of the cornerstone shows. And quick to, excuse me, to bring on some of the special guests and interview them. And as a thank you for that, we just did an interview 2 shows ago with Kevin Eastman. And in doing that, that's a show that Brian and I were setting up a year ago before everything hit with COVID. Well, then Eastman's schedule got scrapped, but he still had us on the list. So when that came back up, I invited Brian on to help co-host, and me and Brandon and Brian all got a chance to sit down and talk with him. So that was kind of my thank you for that. And then you've heard me mention the name Chuck Panu already, and Chuck does a show called Shop Talk. which just kind of really gets into the grind of comics and how what it takes to produce one, right? Like we talked about how hard it is to get one going and do these things. So I got to give props to Chuck, because Chuck's just, really out there just getting it done. And then I can't go without saying for, Mike Faber and Mike Gordon, who do Earth Station 1, right? They get out there, and again, another network that's part of the NSC Roadshow. Christian Basil, who does, I know you've probably heard of Legend of the Traveling TARDIS. That's more of a Doctor Who kind of thing. Christian's a great guy, real big supporter of what we do. We support him as well. And then I can't leave out Sam Vera and George Medina that do Catch the Craze. They're one of the most recent shows. I say recent. They've been with us for, probably 6 months now at least. And they're just out there getting it done. And they bring on creators as well. We bring in a Kickstarter, and that's one of the shows. Each of these shows I mentioned to you, they're bringing the guest on, and they get a chance to give their talk on what they do. So it's a family in a network setting, as far as we all have a common goal and a common good invested in the creator. So I say these people's names because they mean a lot to me, and they mean a lot to the guests coming on, and they all have their mind and their heart in the right place in getting the word out there about these shows. So that's why I wanted to go ahead and mention them. And like I said, it's a team effort. Ink doesn't stand up by itself and get this done. It takes all these people that I've mentioned, from the creators coming on to the people that are helping with the shows, to the core team. It takes all of us to take either from a brand new creator all the way up to a veteran and help make this possible. So, and like I said, getting on to be able to talk about it, I definitely appreciate it, Andrew. It's been a joy to be able to sit here and just give just a snippet so far.
And then there's a lot of other stuff also, and I'm going to quickly go through some of this. Obviously, we mentioned NCS Roadshow, obviously getting guests in front of, podcasts and on media appearances, Facebook Lives, YouTube stuff. It's a big deal, Obviously, I get emails all the time on my personal Facebook page and even in my personal inbox of people saying, hey, can I come on? I need media appearances. Because, well, you want to get in front of people, and the more people you get in front of. Also, I know that you employ the strategy of sort of having a launch pad where you start 2-3 weeks sometimes ahead, maybe even a month ahead. And so I know that's sort of part of it. Without giving too much away, not all the strategies are going to be revealed for free here. I want to make that crystal clear, but that's something that I know that you sort of did, and that I sort of adopted a little bit with finding people and saying, okay, well, what's your battle plan a little bit? Because usually now you have to have a Kickstarter going to be on my show coming out at least 2 weeks before, or it's active. I can't.
Well, and I'll tell you some basis on where those numbers come from. You're numbers guys, so you'll appreciate this. And this is openly stuff you can go look up right now on the internet. We always research, right? We spend time each and every day researching the newest trends, what's going on, what's hot, what's not, trying to figure out the right animal. And part of that is Kickstarter openly admits, and I can send you some links to this later, but Kickstarter admits that about 66% of the comics that hit around that number get funded. Only that number. Well, we've been very fortunate and very blessed in the fact that our funding rate is 97%, 97.1 to be exact. So 97% funding rate for our Kickstarters versus, and that's saying that we've really developed a way to do this. So like I said, it's been through trial and error, a lot of research, a lot of putting together the best plans, a lot of taking and reaching back years ago for these telecom campaigns and going, okay, what worked in a telecom setting? How did we get to the audience? How did we get to the new consumer? Because back then, I was a punk kid in the business, and I was, 19 and had a tie on. And I'm in a room with people old enough to be my grandfather, and we're doing market research on what they called cash rich, credit poor, which were people that couldn't go into a store. And I'm dating myself here. This is back when people are rocking the pager. Okay. So people couldn't go into a store and afford $900. Can you imagine a $900 deposit and walk out with a phone? I mean, that's kind of how it was. Because we're talking, the phone was probably $2,600 back then. I mean, it was ridiculous. So they couldn't afford it. But the other marketing objective was I worked for a company that was the first in the nation to develop a prepaid program. So here again, like I said, I was still in college actually at the time. in this room, and I forget, I remember it like it was yesterday, sitting around. I'm sitting in for the VP who I worked for in marketing. So I'm the marketing manager, and I'm in there, and there's all these people sitting around, which are probably all millionaires. They all had a piece of the company. And they're all scratching their head trying to think of how to market to the cash rich, credit poor. And I'm listening, I'm taking it all in. And I was a lot more brash back then, right? You don't have a filter at 19, 20 years old. And I'm sitting in there and I'm listening to all this. And I said, and I was calling him by name, Steve, hey, Steve, what's a gallon of milk cost these days? And he's like, I don't know, $2. I don't know. And okay, John, when's the last time you actually looked at your electric bill to make sure that, do I pay my electric bill, or do I go get a gallon of milk, or can I pay the phone bill? What bill do I have to skip to go get bread? You guys done any of that lately? And they went, I said, okay, stop right there. I'm the guy you want to market to, because I'm the struggling artist out of college that has, a can of beans, and I'm heating up a cheese sandwich for lunch because that's kind of what I brought. Okay. So I'm the guy you want to market to. So we started doing marketing, and that's when I started learning about market research and how much it actually cost to do what they call a pop or an ad, right? It cost us like $416 back then to add on a new customer, and you recoup that new customer and where your break even was and all that kind of good stuff. So all that marketing know-how, I kept my ears open and my eyes wide open, taking all that in. And that's what we do now. We figure out where your sweet spot is, how much money you need to make 5,000, 10,000, 15,000, whatever your funding goal is. We say, okay, your book has to sell for about this. You need to sell this many per week. You need to stay on this pace, or you're not going to be there. So we go into that, and we just break it down for people. We try to de-engineer it in a way that makes sense, and show them the path, and scale it which way they need to go. Because some people get out there and they're like, it's my first book and I want to make $100,000. And you're like, that's not going to happen. And you don't want to hurt their feelings, but you're like, look, let's be realistic here. I just got through telling you that Kickstarter, 66% make it and the rest of them don't. I said, so you got to kind of play those.
More complicated now with Kickstarter. I don't know if you know this statistic, but when Keanu Reeves, Scott Snyder, Jeff Lemire, Charles Soule, and Ryan Brown, more projects were being funded when they were on during 2020, and now less projects are being funded. Now, I'll admit some of the goals were maybe $500, and if you have a project that is $500, it's a lot easier to fund a $500 project or $1,000 than funding a $10,000 project. But even still, now with those people leaving, they brought a lot of air into the room, and then they did. And people made fun of me. People made fun of me for that. And
you hit the nail on the head, Andrew. You hit the nail on the head. You bring up a great point, because it's kind of like, excuse me.
I'm expecting people to say I'm sorry to me. I really am.
When people saw that, when they saw Berserker come out, right? When they saw these kind of things come out that had a natural audience built in already, they went, oh wow, I can just come up with a book, and I can come to Kickstarter, and I'm going to walk away with $500,000 because I threw it in the machine, not knowing how the machine works. They think you just pop it in one side. It's like the microwave, and 35 seconds later, bing, my Kickstarter is done, and I've got $100,000. And that is so far from the truth. And like you said, it's a great way to put it. It did bring a lot of air into the room, and there was a lot of stir, and there's people that also kind of bring in other people to associate with their books, like they did with Berserker, right? That put the name with the book. I've heard two sides of that story. I don't know which one's true. It's all, what they call it, tribal knowledge at this point, how much he actually touched the book, how much he actually came up with the story, those kind of things. But, Keanu Reeves is associated with books, so everybody wants to see what Keanu Reeves making.
Also, Berserk is even more complicated because that was timed with Cyberpunk 2077. It was timed with some Keanu Reeves stuff coming out. Beyond that, it wasn't just randomly put out. There was a big play and a big connection with other marketing ploys. I
Oh
think
yeah.
Bill and Ted's, Adventure came out or was just announced around the same time that book was funding. There's a lot of stuff going on. Brilliant marketing. You can't
Now
deny
we've
that.
now we've done books to where we've triggered the marketing around certain things and preloaded things to build up to it and funded books in 5 minutes. The record for us right now is funding a book within 5 minutes, and the most backers we've ever had in a campaign is 916. So we have other goals we want to break. We want to break faster than 5, right? I want to get more than 900. There's other personal goals that I have for people, and a personal goal that I'm very proud of, that the team is proud of, for the Inked family as a whole. The personal goal was 250,000, right? $250,000 for the number of Kickstarters that we've done. We wanted to raise that for the group, the family of clients, family of customers. We surpassed that. I haven't looked at it in the last couple of days, but we're at like 302, 304, something like that. So over $300,000 has been raised for the Inked family and the family of creators. So that makes us really proud that we're a part of helping make that happen. I don't tell people that we're responsible for 100% of it, because there's all kind of other avenues that help make it happen. But we're at the forefront. We actually ran those campaigns. We actually put out the product, did the ads, did the placement, did the radio spots. Had the customers out there, coming up and listening and seeing what's going on, lining up the shows, all that we were a part of. I don't count the ones that we kind of helped here and there, because there's been several that we just kind of come in at the end of it and help them raise a little bit, or help put them over the mark. Those are kind of triage, though. It's kind of really tough to come in, even if somebody's been going for a week, because I can't tell you how many times you get a phone call that says, "Hey, look, we've been going for about a week. We are flat. We're not going to make it. Can you help?" And we have picked up a couple of those. It's triage, though. I mean, you are just stopping the bleeding, and you're trying to figure out if you can resuscitate them. And a couple of them we've turned around, and they're lifelong customers now. They want us to come back and do every book, because I say, look, we're going to fix this one if you will bring me the next one and let us do it our way. Okay, that's the only thing I ask when we walk in those situations. And 2 of those were brand new creators, and they were just, one of them, and I could really strangle the guy that talked him into this, but they took a brand new creator, and they said, okay, you're green as grass. You're doing a book about the size of an ash can, which for those of you who don't know what ash can is a smaller version of a comic. They said, you're going to make an ash can size book, and you're going to do it. You need $5,000 to make that happen. Kid's fresh out of comic school, green as grass, and they threw him out there, but yet they didn't help market him. So he was referred to us, and 80% of our business is referral, and we like it that way. So he said, "Hey man, look, this is where I'm at. I don't know if I'm going to make it." And we helped him through some marketing ways, and he ended up, I think, at 5,300, 5,400. So now he's in the comic world. Now he's in the comic business, and is excited because he's there. Another one, same kind of thing, was again flatlined. He'd been out there for about a week. One of the podcast shows came to us and said, "Look, this is a really solid guy. It'd be nice to kind of help him out. Can you come in and help?" And after that, he's lined up 2 other projects after that with us. So that's the fun. That's the feel good. Are they tougher than the ones we get to do from the beginning? Yes. Are they worth it? They're worth it, because you get to see that person make it in the comic business, and that's what counts. You get to see that person become a creator, get their book published. I just opened up a book probably 20 minutes before I came on that I was really excited to get. I should have brought a copy up here, but it's still downstairs. That's where I unpack everything. That's a book that we helped fund for a young guy in Mexico. And the books just came in. Our set of books, we got a pretty good size set of books from him coming in, because we're going to distribute them as different things for awards and everything. But it got lost. It's been somewhere between Mexico and here for a few months now, and it just surfaced here, like I said, about 20 minutes before your show. So it's fun to see. It's fun to hear a new creator fund, right? We've had them fund when they're on a show, and you get to be a part of it, or you get the message when you're doing something. Hey man, I just funded. We usually know before they do, because we're kind of like the expectant father. We're watching it more than the creator a lot of times, and And I'm over here messaging to the creator going, hey, man, you just popped, you got 50 backers. So it's probably a good time to do a backer message and a thank you. Oh, yeah, I need to jump on that. And they'll hop on, they'll do a good quick thank you. Or like, hey, look, we just hit 25,000, which is a milestone. Be a good time to get out there and, let everybody know what's going on. And then like, oh, yeah, I was in the middle of a painting or a drawing. Yeah, let me stop real quick. I appreciate the reminder, so that's always a feel good to be able to talk like that.
And then obviously there's a bunch of other stuff you do, obviously social media, some ad work, press releases, obviously booking guests, just general advice. Because I hate to say this, but there is pre-Kickstarter, there is the Kickstarter, obviously there's a creation of the comic over here, and then there's the entire con world and the entire stuff with that. And I'm sure that, while you're not a printer, I don't think you're a printer, right?
Well, funny you should say that. Um, that is in the works because I can't tell you how many times I get asked about fulfillment and printing. And I came from that world because I was the one out there going out there and doing the press checks for all these large corporations and working with the printers and picking the papers and all that good stuff. Um, and I kind of miss it. So it's something that I've looked into. We have a company that we've formed. It's called Fission Press, and the Fission Press is kind of a play off the atomic camaraderie and about the whole playoff radiation with the whole fission process. So Fission Press is the name of it. We're looking into a couple of avenues on how to do that. And again, we're going to kind of put together a couple things with that, which will be um, fulfillment. And I'm working with another gentleman right now looking into the possibilities of even adding in swag. So, given that way, when you walk in the door, we can offer you the full gamut, the turnkey, right? We can say, okay, here's how we're going to help fund. Here's some avenues on how to print. Here's some avenues on how to get your swag. And hey, by the way, we can go ahead and ship it out the door for you. So it's complete turnkey. You come in the door and you're in and out, and you as the creator get to create, and all the headache we take on and get all that done. So it's taken years to build all that, and it's a direction we're excited about, but it just takes time. You have to make sure that we always research that we're doing what's going to be the best fit, because I don't want to jump out there and do anything half baked and do a printing company that doesn't offer the kind of quality that the other companies in the family of qualities do. So it's
Also,
it
printing is a monster right now. There's a
it
lot of
is.
stuff going on with it where obviously there's cost, there's issue of where you're going to print. If you're printing in such volumes or little volumes, that's an issue. Also, metals, spot
Yep.
on foils,
Yep.
all the stuff that then gets even more complicated.
I got to tell you, Richard Boom is the wizard at specialty covers. So he's always a good ally to have on the team to talk about all these different cool covers that can be put out there. And there's all kind of what kind of stitching do you do? Do you do regular staple? Do you perfect bound? I mean, what kind of way do you present your book? And there's a lot of people in the printing arena right now. A lot of good printers in the printing arena. I got to admit, there's a lot of really good people out there. And um, the interesting thing about it though is there's a lot of people that have come to us and said, "Hey, look, man, I've got to hang up with the printer. Something got screwed up. My book's now pushed back a couple of weeks. What do we do?" But we don't have any control in that. That's why I say if we could have that as an added on company, then we have a dog in the fight and we can help make a control call and help them out. And that's kind of like I said, part of the reasoning behind getting it. You have to put a printer in with a fulfillment company, because fulfillment for a lot of printers is basically like it's called a loss leader in the marketing terms. So you don't make a lot on fulfillment, but if you offer it, it's the thing that takes the monkey off people's back. And but there's creators out there. I mean, I got to give props to people, like Justin Gray, who literally, Justin's, as we put him in a series that we just have coming out. It's called the Titans of Industry. He's having a show with us, another show with us here in a couple of weeks. Um, but in the Titans of Industry, we talk about those people that have been out there doing it for 25, 30 years and just been getting it done. And that's a fun series for us because we're talking to these giants in the business, right? The series started off with Eastman, and then it went into Bart Sears, who's Valiant Comics as far as, Turok, and did a lot of stuff in Exo, did pencils and covers for Exo. Batman, Blade in the 2000s. So he's a well known name. So those kind of people are out there getting it done. Justin fills the books on his kitchen table. The man had a 20 plus $1,000 campaign and
I know people
nine
like that.
nine
A
hundred
lot of people.
backers and filled 900 orders on his kitchen table. My hat's off to that. That's just getting it done.
I know
Um,
people like that. Dawn Mateague, JP Roth
yeah,
done that. Ebess have done that. There's people out there who have done that, and it's crazy. And like, I think Dawn Mateague or Mateague is doing Divinica, and Divinica as a hardcover book, phenomenal. And she was on my show, and she's been
yeah.
on my show like a punch. And it's just like they're doing the fulfillment. It's a lot of work, but it's
Oh
also
yeah.
it's crazy, but sometimes you have to do it. I do everything in my business because I can't
Yep.
afford to hire somebody.
Well, and then Monty Michael Moore's out there just getting it done, and he's doing all these prints and all these specialty covers and bringing in all these rock star artists and getting this stuff done and building these amazing frames. Right? He's doing these large scale print. And he's not just doing that. He went from starting one IP, one property. Right now he's got like 11 in the hopper coming out, and he's still doing the big stuff. He's still doing Mandalorian for Star Wars. He's still tied in with Thomas Kincaid. I mean, he just went down to Florida and did a signing at Disney for his stuff with the Mandalorian. So it's fun for me because I was a fan of these people and admire because as a fellow artist, I'm admiring their work and I know what goes into it. And then they become friends. You get to chat with them. A quick story on one of the ones that really impacted me was I got a chance to meet Stephen Butler. I was probably like 16, 17 years old. And I got to meet him and Peter David at my local comic shop. Now, Peter David before he was Peter David, right? So he signed, and I used to have him up on the wall. I got to put him back up. Was it Hope 3? I don't remember what, 377? It kind of escapes me right now. But the bright green cover that is Professor Hulk that everybody wants, right? I have one of those signed to me from Peter from that day. He signed that. He signed a Spider-Man 2099. And then Steven signed a Silver Sable #1. Coming full circle, Steven says, "Hey, I'm doing this Butler's Brigade thing. I'd like to put something on NSC Live TV." I said, "Steven, you have no idea who I am. I was a punk little skinny kid when you signed my Silver Sable, and you're one of the reasons NSC Live is here today. That inspiration in my local comic shop in Nowhereville, Louisiana, helped inspire me to want to stay in the business and stay around creators and other fellow artists and other writers and whatnot." I said, "So you've been an influence." He'll send me stuff. "Hey, look, this is what I'm doing for Batman. This is my, this I'm doing for this customer, that customer." I said, "Okay." One day I said, what's if you had to pick a book, what was your inspirational book?" And he thought about it for a second. He said, "You know what?" He said, "Probably Devil Dinosaur #1 Kirby book." He said, "That's probably the one." He said, "I've got a beat up rag book. It's nothing special." He said, "But it's one of my favorite books." So as a gratis to him for inspiring me as a punk kid, I found him a CGC pretty high grade version and mailed that to him. So as a gift, and I bought the same one. So I have the same grade CGC version that he does, and it just stays up as a reminder to me. Um, to the left of me right now is the very first book I ever picked up as a kid, which is Warlord #77. And it's a Jurgens book. It's a Dan Jurgens book. Back before I knew who Dan Jurgens was, right? I was 11. My dad was in and out of the hospital a lot of back surgeries and stuff. So that's where the comics were. They were in the gift shop or they were at 7-Eleven. We didn't have a comic shop till I was probably 16, 17 years old. So, as a lot of you guys out there and guys and gals out there listening and watching, that's where you went for books. I can remember the smell of burnt nachos and hot dogs in the background and Clorox spilled on the floor at my 7-Eleven. I rode my bike over there like Stranger Things, right? I got my bike and went over there with my buddies and we played video games and drank Slurpees and thumbed through the rack, bending books up like crazy trying to find something. So it's all those things are reasons why I like the business, reasons why I like doing what we do.
Yeah, I like the business for a different reason completely. I enjoy comics, but I really like because I can't draw. And so I love cover artwork because I can't do that. I will never be able to do that. And then also, I figured out very quickly when I needed beer money in college that comic money. And all of a sudden, when you're a broke college kid and you need beer money next month, you're $50 short, meaning you have $0 to buy the next bunch of comics that you're reading, and you sell 120 book, that you bought for $20 3 years before. You say, wow, there's something here. And then you go through your collection, you actually have a lot of comics that are worth money. And there you go.
That's I use them as collateral stocks and bonds because the other thing that birthed out of NSC Live TV was Top Dog Comics. So Top Dog Comics is again, I keep anywhere from 3,500 to 5,000 books on hand at any time, and part of that is a flip inventory, right? And things happen in life, right? So you go, hey, look, I need to flip this book and sell it. I can't tell you how many times major books have passed through my hands, and I'm like, you know what? I really need to keep that book someday. But there was my wife's grandparents passed away tail end of last year, pretty close together, about 2 months apart. So we're all the way in Washington. My wife is from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. So that's a pretty good haul. And when when funeral happens, you don't get months to go buy a flight in advance. I mean, it's a hit pretty quick. So I was like, well, time to go dig through the boxes, and I pulled out and started pre-selling books before the flights. And I don't have one handy or I'd show you, but the regular, it's way over there. The regular black they the regular black book that you carry around to Comic Cons that you slide your books in so they don't get beat up and they're kind of protected. I had one of those, and just that little bit of comics paid for the entire trip, the flights, the hotel, the
So
food, everything. And I carried them. Now get
in,
this,
in
I,
my
I carried
world,
them on the plane with me. So that was my carry-on, was this thousands of dollars worth of comics in this one little black box, which actually went in the safe when we got to the hotel, which the next day, which is the day before the funeral. So the next day, I went to the post office. Well, first I went to Walmart, bought some bubble wrap, bought all my tape, bought the rest of the stuff like I normally pack at the house, and went and packaged them all up in the hotel room, put them all in the boxes for the post office. Went to the post office and mailed them to all the customers while I'm on the trip. So I mean, comics have
so so
are like that for me.
for those who don't know, my entire play with comics is that what I do is that I buy and sell comics, and then I take all that money and put it into the stock market, into dividend producing stocks. And so for me, I view it as a big equity play. And so I actually just shipped out some comics today, and I shipped out a 601 Spider-Man, and then I shipped out a Mystere 300, which is a Zenescope book by Paul Green, and it's one of his cool Wonderland Mystere type book, and it's like 45% profit margin, and so it's big. And then I have about 8 grand to 9 grand worth of comics right now up on eBay. And before I hopped on with you, I was actually listing like another 5 or 6. And
Yep.
so there's real money. And that's why I'm teaching this class, because again, I go back to this where a lot of people, see all the fancy stuff and see top 10 lists. But what they don't know is they don't know the basics. They don't know how to calculate a variant ratio
Right.
position. And so that's a big deal where it's
Yep.
great. And some
And
of
the
that, I'm not a
and the
big fan of.
speculation market plays havoc on the prices, right? And then you hear about something in the background. This movie may or may not happen, and you'll watch books inflate and go down based upon that. You'll watch them move around, and it always is funny to me because people go to the movies that aren't necessarily don't know the storylines behind the comics, right? They're just fans and they want to go see Avengers, right? So they're out there and they're like, oh my god, Iron Man just died. We're like, yeah, like several years ago he died, and it's just, I mean, it just kind of came to the screen.
It's also super weird because what's going on right now also is that you look at people who are buying comics and high-end books of like 30, 40, $50,000. Those aren't people who are interested in the comics. They're looking for alternative investing. And
That's a big thing in the indie world. That's why a lot of these books, A lot of these creators would do all these variant covers, and the books never opened, right? They
And one of the things that's a big problem is that, and I see it, and I don't know if you see it, and I'm going to be taking a little bit of a pitch shot, but I think it's something that a lot of indie creators need to actually hear, and they need to sort of get their ass kicked. Is people say, "Oh, I could be the next Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles," and to do what Kevin Eastman did and Peter, oh wow, I can't think of his last name right now, did. It's so hard to do that again, and
Yeah, because it's that special moment in time that all the stars aligned with that.
And then
And
to even go further into that, right now, also what's happening with Image and like Stray Dogs is that there's so many indie books that are being pumped up. And it's the idea that I would say 60 to 70, if not 80% of them, are going to get cut down in 5 years and are not going to be worth, 1/10 of what they're worth because everything's inflated in big spec on what Netflix is buying and how this thing is going to go. And so that's not to say don't invest in indie. That's saying you have to fully understand that if you pick 20 books, only two of those books from an investment position are going to be, worth real money. Now, I like reading indie comics. I don't buy and back an indie comic for the sake of an investment. I buy and am interested because I want to read the stories.
right,
Now, I'll pick if it's an artist's first cover. That's a different play completely because if you have Sun Kumanaki's first cover on in Kickstarter, that's a different play because what you're betting on is an artist doing very well, and that's their first cover, and that's a different sector. But as
yeah,
far as an actual book, doing something, it's kind of like Todd McFarlane's first, comic was, Coyote something, I think. So obviously that's a whole different play. But I think a lot of indie creators, because I don't
there's
think that's what you're betting on and your company is doing, is you're trying to get the book funded for it to be read.
right, exactly, to get there, because that's the difference in the markets is the richness of the stories, because they're in control of that. There's no formula or no, and there's nothing put upon them, and there's no other decisions made than them getting out a raw story. And that's why Justin likes to be able to tell his story, because he had parameters and boxed in on what he could do before in Jonah Hex that he doesn't have to have done now. Not to say there's anything wrong with the way they do business. I'm just saying it's a different avenue. It's more flexible. The other thing about it is I like still to this day going into the comic shops, getting the smell of the old comics, thumbing through and looking for books, what I call in the wild. I have become, I don't want to say eclectic, but somewhat, because I like finding the non-direct book. I like finding the book that's the newsstand book that's made it and been out in the wild and survived, and it's a higher grade because it's lived. It's been out there. It's been out in the world and had opportunities to get folded in half or crushed or bent in a rack, or it's not been bagged and boarded at a comic shop with the Spider-Man symbol on it and slipped in a box and stayed for 25 years. And they go, hey, guess what? Look, we have 25 Spider-Woman #1s that have been sitting in a box for the last 20 years. It's a different thing. We'll talk about horror comics for a second. Non-code horror comics, EC, right? I found EC books in the wild, like digging around, and went, "Oh my god!" You know, you don't see
So
that kind of stuff.
my favorite thing in the world is when you go through a dollar bin.
Yep.
And you've seen it, and you know exactly where I'm going with this. Have you ever seen somebody who love their dollar bin comics, and you can feel the love in it? And I'm just tearing through it, and then I found a Brian Pulido leather Lady Death cover, 10,000 copies, and you could just tell that a guy loved the book. And
Yeah.
and then I found some Aspen stuff of Shrug, and then I found this Red Hood and Outlaw book that's a little bit newer, which has the great Starfire scene in it. I'm a huge Teen Titans Starfire fan. And so you could tell that through that entire thing, and what I should have done is should have just picked up the entire thing with kind of
It's
said,
it's funny you should mention that, because uh, I'm actually writing a story on, um, just that, of a book that what I call loved. I've got two Captain America books. One of them I got is exactly what it's been folded in half. The kid wrote his name on it. He traced the characters. He's all kind of stuff's going on the cover of this book. I mean, this book has been loved. It's been read. It's been, And then I have the same issue pristine. And I'm doing an
So
article with them side by side, going, okay, which one is the more loved? The one that's been just bagged and boarded and just under glass its whole life, or the one that's been flipped and read and passed to a buddy and put in his back pocket when he rode his bike to the pool? And which one do you
So
like?
for me, this collection was almost pristine. It was a little beat up. You could tell that the books were read, but you could tell that somebody thoroughly enjoyed this in
Yeah,
their collection. You could feel
yeah,
it. That's what I mean by loved, is that
yeah,
the beat up books are great too. I love beat up comics. Don't get me
yep,
wrong. I think they're fun and they're cool, and especially when they're not ultra expensive. If you have
yep,
like a cover that's folded in half and it's 50 cents, I'll take a look at it. Why
yeah.
not? But it's the idea that when I go and find somebody's collection and you could tell that, oh, these books aren't worth much, but this person thoroughly appreciated it, or a comic shop bought the entire thing for $25. There's 250
Well,
comics,
the
and they
the
just want to make
the
their
guy
money.
living the guy living the dream right now, and I know we're talking about a lot of names, and it's not names. I don't want anybody to get the sense that it's names to name drop. It's names. The reason I'm putting names out there is people that I enjoy, people that I follow, people that have become friends. Barry Dutter is one that is living the dream. Barry was out there, and quick little Barry story. If you follow She-Hulk at all, Barry was out there like writing, and we did a story on Barry. There, he was writing uh, basically, hate mail to Marvel, saying, "Oh my God, Marvel has done the same thing DC has done. Their Lady Everything now. They're She-Hulk, and there was Batgirl, now there's She-Hulk, and now there's Spider-Woman. I can't understand where all this is coming from." And he's literally writing letters to Congress, basically, and he's like making up names, getting his friends' names on these petitions, right? And he's sending all this into Marvel and the editor. And he's in like a 7-Eleven one day, and he picks up a book of She-Hulk. He's like, "Oh God, there's another She-Hulk book in here." And he flips through it, and the jailer's name of She-Hulk is Dutta. And that character Dutta is a spinoff in a dig back at Barry, because the editor's like, "Okay, we'll play this game." And he's like, "Oh my God." And he made the connection. Well, years later, fast forward, he goes to work at Marvel. And the editor's like, "Isn't that crazy guy that was like writing us a bunch of letters and stuff?" So he talks about that experience, and then he talks about he basically parlayed like $400 that he won on Deal or No Deal. And I actually remember seeing him on that show. He took the $400 from Deal or No Deal and parlayed that into $4,500 from flipping collections. And he's living the dream, because Barry's out there in California going to yard sales, estate sales, finding books, going to everything. My favorite book that he found, and you reminded me of it when you said that beat up book, was he found a Hulk 181 at like a flea market. And he's like, "What?" And he pulled it out of like the bin book. And he's like, "Okay." And he went up to the counter and he looked over, and there's a sign that says, 3 for $10. He laid his 3 books on the counter, the Hulk 181 in the 3. He goes, "Hey man, what do I owe you?" And the guy said, "Look at the sign, man. It says 3 for 10. Okay. Gives him his $10 bill and says, "Thank you very much." And a younger guy sees all this go down, sees the book. He's like, "Man, I got to have that book." And he hounds Barry from the time he bought the book through the parking lot to his car. And he's like, "Look, man, I don't want to sell the book. I got to grade it. I got to figure out what it's worth." And forgive me, the number escapes me, but I want to say it's like around $600-700. The guy was like in his 20s, and he was like, "I'll PayPal you right now in the parking lot. I will pay you $600 or $700 for that book to walk home, to leave with it. You can." And he found Barry's like, "Right, fine." So he bought the book for $3.33 and turned around and sold it for $600 or $700 within 5 minutes after buying it. So
Because where I'm going with a lot of this also is that I'm in the process of figuring out a wholesale license,
yep,
and so I want to enter that entire game, and I don't want to enter it as far as necessarily. I want to do some diamond stuff, in particular with places like Dark Horse and Dynamite and Zenoscope. But I really want to hit up places like Big Dog Inc. and hit up a bunch of indie comics,
yep,
because I think there's a big thing, and I'm obviously entering that phase a little bit. And I'm not going to mention who it is, but he's at MegaCon. He's got a great book. I'll mention him actually. It's Travis Gibb, and he's got a really cool book, Cthulhu Invades Wonderland, and it's a preview book, and it's coming out at MegaCon. part of it. So obviously, I'm picking up some of his Voodoo Nation. We're gonna see how that goes. And I got about 9 copies coming my way on my eBay store. So
Yep.
it's
Well,
getting really
here's
exciting.
the thing with that. You can, I always encourage um, indie books to offer a store tier, because we have a list of the 2,100 stores in the continental U.S. and we know which ones are indie friendly, we call it. So we say, hey, look, here's the list. Contact these stores with your tier,
I'm
and you
gonna
can.
give you a caveat, but continue. I'm gonna let you finish first.
So we put that as part of the thing because we like making that connection between the stores and the indie friendly stores. Now, to go a step further on the
My
PR side,
caveat to
go ahead.
this, and I think at the end of where you're going with this, is that so I'm an eBay store. I'm not a brick and mortar store.
Right.
I am going to eventually move over into Shopify, but when you allow me to play on eBay, guess what? Now I am going to be playing eventually on Facebook Live. I'm going to be playing on, eBay, and I'm building out an entire Instagram page and bringing out an
Mm-hmm.
entire separate Facebook page. And my store is called Pop Anime Comics Collectibles. So I deal with Pop Funkos, I deal with Pokemon cards, and guess what? You know what it is? Open it up to me because now I obviously interview all these people. I interview, and then who's better to sell this book than me interviewing you about your book? And then I'm like, okay, guys, I sell this in my store. It's
Right.
a perfect connection for everybody who's listening to me. But if you don't let me play, I'm not. I'm still going to interview you, for instance, but I'm not going to be as excited because now I can't make money. If you give me the ability to buy 10 books for 40 bucks, then I know I can sell them for 80 to 90. I'm going to be thrilled to interview you even more.
Right. And that's why we did the trifecta of the groups, because each business feeds the other business. It's all a way to get the message out there, just a different way to get the message out there. Like for instance, the show we have coming on Friday night for Atomic Camaraderie. We're on, all these different, like I said, Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio, Comic Crusaders, YouTube. We're in all these different platforms, and then of course a lot of the ones in the road show simulcast us, so we get simulcast out several times over. YouTube for us is basically what I call a parking lot, right? You got to build a video, you got to put it somewhere to have a link to put it out everywhere else, and that's what we do with YouTube. We kind of just park them over there. But that one is going to be it's going to be a 10-year anniversary kind of thing. So Tiki Zombie 4 is coming out, and we're really excited. And that's the show that we're going to do Friday. And then right behind that, we got some other. So we've got everything booked out for August, and we're booking September now. But that's a creator that came to us and said, "Hey, look, I've got a 10th anniversary book coming out. We've followed what you've been doing. Um, we're picking up what you're putting down. As they say. We like what we hear. We'd like for you to do our book." And here we are. We're doing it. Like I said, we're going to launch it. Tiki Zombie actually launches Friday the 13th. Why not? We do it on the Friday the 13th show. Why not have a zombie book pop out on Friday the 13th? So that kind of fun stuff. And we're doing that. And then a little bit after that is going to be going to pop out. There's going to be Spicy Pulp 6 for Justin. That book's coming out. That book, we hope to blow out Spicy Pulp 5. We hope to beat those numbers. And then right about that same time, a book called Outliers coming out. And Outliers is a big book because it's a first-time creator. And this first-time creator has a Bart Sears cover. Okay. So how many first-time creators get, a mega artist as a cover artist, right? So a lot of good stuff coming out. We're excited about all these creators.
I answered
Do
the
what?
phrase. It's happening. I'm getting an Ebass, a Sun Kumanaki, and a Josh Burns cover. And if you don't think I can pull it off, everybody, you're wrong.
It's fun getting into that. It's fun following all these different people and seeing what they can do. And it's amazing what happens. Okay, here's how things play out. The gentleman came to us and he said, "Hey, look," he said, "Look, we want you to do, we talked about it." And I approached him actually and said, "Hey, look, this is what we do. I'd like to pick up Outliers and do something with it." He said, "Okay," and we worked everything out. And then he said, "Hey, by the way, Bart Sears is doing my cover." I was like, "I'm a huge Bart Sears fan." I whipped out, Turok 1 and XO. I was like, "Hey, here's my books. I can show you I'm a fan." He said, "Well, Bart and I have become friends, and Bart's got a campaign right now called Heads Will Roll. It's a bunch of headshots he's drawn. It's 144 headshots in a book." Um, he said he's not quite where he wants to be with his Kickstarter. He's at 10K. He's got I had a handful of days left. You think you can do something for him? I said, for Bart Sears, yeah. So here we are, bang. We're doing something on Zoop, which is a new platform. And we got Bart Sears' book, and we were able to pull in another 2K in just a number of days and got him to his 12K mark. And he's excited because in his mind, his personal goal was 12,000, and where he's like 12,016 bucks. So, here I am again, geeking out as a fan, going, it's Bart Sears. And we got a chance to help him, get over to the next line. And so now we're going to be talking about some of the other projects. That's just the cool connection between helping this person over here. Hey, this person knows this person. Hey, can you help this guy? Hey, I've got a buddy over here. Hey, what about this person over here? Hey, this friend of mine that helped me get started 20 years ago is an artist buddy of mine. Hey, he knows this person over here. And it just kind of, like you said, comic centric. It just keeps growing because we like to do good work for good people. Is everything a knockout of the park? No, because what I tell people, we're a harsh to water. We are the megaphone. We are the one that gets you the uh, the exposure out there. Now, okay, you got to have good water, right? We can't lead everybody over there because we have the funnels, and
That's
I
one
can,
of the
you
things
know,
about podcasting right now is that, and I'm sure you realize it too, is that there's a bunch of good shows out there, but there's
Mhm.
also a bunch of bad ones, and it is not easy to figure it out. And I could tell you, and I'm sure you know this, COVID hit. So prior to COVID, I was a podcaster for about 5 or 6 years, somewhere in between there, and I did about 124 episodes with 40 in my backlog that haven't been released just because editing takes a while. So when COVID hit and I started doing live streams, my first few were rough because I was new to the platform, but I had the horses behind me as an interviewer. There were people who said, "Hey, I'm going to jump into this," and it is a stiff fucking learning curve. I
Well,
mean, honestly,
it
and it still
it's
is.
and I've turned artists. I mean, we're selective about what we do because I've had Marvel artists come to me and go, you know what, man, I'm a Marvel artist. And I'm not going to name the project, but they're like, I'm doing this big, huge project for Marvel. It's going to be turned into a movie next year. We'd like for you to do our Kickstarter. And I'm like, okay, how many Kickstarters have you done before? Oh, we've never done a Kickstarter before, but my very first Kickstarter, I've got to have 20 grand or else. I'm like, I said, well, you know what? I wish you luck. I'll keep an eye out for it, but we're gonna have to turn the project down because those numbers don't align because you're not at the project stage or the present stage. I kind of know who you are, but I don't know who you are. And if I don't know who you are, you're not of that level yet. I'm not trying to hurt anybody's feelings, but there's certain levels you can attain at certain ventures. And he's like, yeah, but I'm a Marvel artist. I'm like, okay, you can swing a dead cat and hit a Marvel artist. So don't think that you're in a special arena for being a Marvel artist. They are all over the world. Okay. That's not saying anything bad. I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying the fact that there is a lot of them, right?
If Chuck
There's a
Dixon approached you and said, "I want to do 20 grand," that's more realistic.
That's more realistic because I can tap into that fan base he already has, and we can show him how to better market to that fan base.
Or another person, Larry Hama. Larry Hama hits you up and says, "Hey, I got a Kickstarter going on. You got GI Joe and you got Transformers and you got a bunch of stuff out of Dark Horse and Marvel, and you also have somebody who's been around in comics for 50 plus years, and there's a huge amount there." And then every once in a
Right.
while, also somebody just has a great idea and they get to run with it.
Now,
That
and
was
there's books. There's a book now that we're fixing to do that's going to have a pretty hefty tab to it as far as a funding goal. But he's got really good water. So it's not like he's jumping out there with some half baked thing. He's put a lot of thought into the book. He's put a lot of a really good storyline together. He's put a really good sequential set of art together, and not everybody can pull off that sequential thing. So that's a whole different kind of ball game, and that's probably a topic for a whole different show. But
but
it's
I think you know exactly what I mean when I'm saying that a bunch of people in the podcasting world, because everybody, and I don't know if you know this, but I interviewed about 8 or 9 people, and then 3 weeks later, 4 weeks later, 5 weeks later, they all started doing podcasts similar to mine. And obviously, I deep dive
well,
homework, and I'm
it's
cool with it, but they're not doing it anymore because it is intense, it is difficult, and you have to have the stomach, you have to go deep into it. I watch 3 hours of television a week. because that's all I have to watch TV because I'm working on this nonstop and I live a normal life. And in my daytime, I'm looking for work like a lot, and I'm handling other things in my life. And most of these people, they have dropped down to either 2 episodes a month. Some of them have just not done anything for a few months, and some of them have done like 40 episodes and said, I'm done. And so obviously, you need to have the backing. You need to have the project. You need to know what you're doing, because if you don't know what you're doing, you're going to be screwed and you're going to die.
We finally put a page in the book because the solutions guide. That's what I like to tell everybody. If you go to inked.marketing, go over to ink.marketing. You don't have to do the .com because I went ahead and I bought the .marketing part. So inked.marketing. If you go over there and go to our contact us page, there's a quick little form to fill out and just request a solutions guide. The solutions guide gives you how we lay out things. It tells you how the different structures are and what each part does, what the roadshow does, what the press releases do. And then it tells you what your part is, because I finally put the page in there because everybody asks, what do I do as a creator? I said, you know what? We're going to map that out. We're going to show you what you need to do as a creator, because you have skin in the game, man. You got to get in this. And, not only do you have to get in it, your team has to get in it. Now, the thing with a lot of cover artists is you have to get them engaged, especially if you're going to go put money in a rock star cover artist and you want to bring him in. He needs to come to bat. He needs to actually jump on a show with you or get out there and go to his own audience, right? So now you have all these other individual ideal markets that you're pulling from because it's the name of the game. Why do you think they put superstars in action movies, right? They're pulling from that audience. That's the same thing, and that's why these people do these rock star covers. They want to tap into that audience base, right? And there's the completist out there, right? That's why you do 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 covers, 8 covers, because there's that completist out there that becomes a fan that goes, you know what? I got to have every cover. I got to have them all. And that's what they're going to do. They're going to get out there and do it. Now, I also get asked a lot, okay, which platform do you choose? Do you like Indiegogo or do you like Kickstarter? Again, that's a whole other show. We could get into the dynamics of that. There's a website I sent everybody. I was like, go look for yourself. I'll give you some explanations of which one I think you need to based upon your book, because some books are more suited for Indiegogo. Some books are more suited for Kickstarter. There is mechanisms behind that, and we talk about that with customers because they might not know where to go.
Personal preference, a lot of stuff. I don't want to get too controversial. Politics as well plays into this. Also, certain things where, if your funding goal, if you only need 1,000 but you want to aim for the moon, Indiegogo might be a good move for you because, that's just what it is. Or if you just know that the type of book you're putting out there is going to just get more attention than Indiegogo, or it's going to get less flack, there you go. Or what some people do is they do Indiegogo first and then they do Kickstarter because their book's funded on Indiegogo. And Indiegogo is just the initial.
You can play that card either way. You can dip in the fact that you can turn around. We just did it with Local Hero. Local Hero 1 came out, right, a year ago. Local Hero 2 comes out, which we just finished up, another $50,000 campaign. Actually, I'm sorry, there was not quite 50. I have to go back and look at the number. It's probably more like 35 or 40, probably, I think 40. Maybe I have to go back and look at the number. Like I said, I don't like throwing numbers out there. It's somewhere in that range. It got close to, put it this way, each one hit over 600 backers. Local Hero 1, Local Hero 2, and a book called Blood Bullets, which is another Monty Moore book. All 3 books hit over 600 backers. So that's one thing. Revolutionary, great 3 back-to-back hits. What I'm getting at is the fact that Local Hero 1 came out a year ago. So then here comes Local Hero 2. Well, guess what? You can't have 2 of the same book, one in Kickstarter, one in Indiegogo, but you can have Local Hero 1 in Indiegogo while Local Hero 2 is happening over here in Kickstarter land. And then, by the way, guess what? There's new covers in this new re-release of Local Hero 1, and so the completist out there goes ahead and gets those other books to put with their collection. I know I did. I'm a completist. I went ahead and got out there. I was like, you know what? I want that cover and that cover and that cover. That's just part of it. I go back to Monty as far that he's really innovative in his thinking as far as marketing. So it's a lot of fun to work with him. And the thing He's the one that came up with the releasing of 8 new covers that he did some of as well, because that's just to be able to bounce those kind of things back and forth with somebody. I was like, man, that's the perfect way to go with the Indiegogo campaign. Release new covers. That's brilliant, Monty. And that campaign's still running. So you out there, if you want more, like they always say, like Monty always says, if you want to expect more, go out there, Local Hero One, which you go to inked.pub/Local Hero One. Now, the cool thing about it is we take these long, huge 150 plus character Kickstarter addresses you get and crunch it all back down into a branded kind of signature. So everything is inked.pub/ whatever the name of your book is. So ink.pub/ Local Hero 1, Local Hero 2, Outlier, Heads Will Roll. Any of those are just right behind it. And it gives you a nice branded link, easy to remember, easy to go find, not this 154 character link, because in web building, every time you put a page down, the longer the physical address in the website goes. That's why you get that long, huge link. But we can also take that link and we can track it, which is awesome. Give you feedback. Are you selling in Thailand? Are you selling in the US? Are you selling in Australia? Where's the book selling at? The other part of that is, like I said, the branding aspect of it. Hats, T-shirts, stickers, whatever you want to do with it, easy to remember. The other fun in that is the fact that you can go to ink.marketing at any given time and hit the gallery and see some of the previous Kickstarters, or you can hit the Live Now button and look at all the ones that are out there that we're doing at one time. So if you want to just kind of get a feel for the Kickstarters that are out there or what they're doing or what they've done, you can go check it out that way. So ink.marketing, just go right to the gallery page. You look at all the different ones out there. Some of the ones I've told you about: Blood and Bullets, Local Hero 1, Billy the Kit, Amerikaiju, all these cool books that are out there. Divine Feather, which is the book that I just got in here, like I said, a few minutes ago, the one that was lost for months. That was, like I said, a first-time creator book. But all those books you can find, go right to the Kickstarters that were, and guess what? Hey, these books are coming back out. It's time for Amerikaiju 2 to come out, Divine Feather 2 to come out. So all these books are coming down the line. So a lot of good stuff coming on. We average, usually we try to keep 5 to 7 Kickstarters a month going, which sounds crazy. We've had as many as 10 going in 1 month, which is pretty psycho, but a lot of fun. We did, and I know they say never. I don't think I'm going to put this kind of stress on the team. I don't think we'll do 3 launches in the same day ever again. It was phenomenal. It was fun. We did it. We can say we did it. Got the T-shirt and the hat to prove it. All 3 funded wonderfully, but it was craziness to get 3 of them off the ground at the same time. Fly, bird, fly, and try to get all that. It's a lot of pushing buttons, flipping switches, making alignments, getting the plans together, and they all have to converge the same day when the launch happens. Well, take that times 3, and that's what kind of craziness that launch parties were like. So a lot of fun, but we get jazzed about it. You can tell that I get pretty worked up about talking about this stuff because it's fun for me.
And obviously, we've been talking for a while, and I don't want to keep you here all night, at least live all night, because you want to pick your brain slightly for a few minutes afterwards, if you don't mind. But anyhow, obviously, you just promoted a lot of stuff that's going on. There's some stuff going on Indiegogo, some stuff going on Kickstarter. You can check it out. Obviously, previews with Billy the Kit is coming out in previews. So obviously, you can now order that, I think, and then you'll get it. I think, what is it, 2 months out? I want to say previews.
I want to say, the previews. I was happy that my local comic shop here, I was like, hey, you got your new previews in yet? They're like, yeah. They went in the back and they went and got me one. It's probably on the shelf now, but this was like a couple days before August hit when I picked that one up. And I picked that one up so I could do the photo shoot real quick and kind of give him some props for getting out there and getting it done. So.
And so obviously you've been promoting a lot of stuff, but where can people find you, find Inked Marketing, obviously the NCS Roadshow, becoming involved, Atomic Camaraderie, I think it is, or Camaraderie.
We keep it where it's all easy to find. If you come over to inked.marketing, you can actually find everything, because You come there, that major hub, and that has offshoots to NSC Live TV and to Atomic Camaraderie, which is our own show. You can actually go to them direct, because if you go to comicraderie.com, which is basically, it's what they call a portmanteau. When you take two words and just jam them together and make a new word, like the word smog is smoke and fog, you get smog. Motel and motor, or hotel and motor is motel, right? I took camaraderie and comic and slapped them together and made camaraderie, because I felt the camaraderie of the cons was missing at this time. And the whole premise of the show is this is all like COVID time, and these tapes have been uncovered at the Manhattan Project, and they were stored away for years. And all these interviews that we're doing are old interviews that are playing to show what it was like in COVID times, right? And these people have found them years later, and that's kind of the premise of the show. So I was able to take my day gig, which is working in the nuclear field. What a fun day gig, right? I get to work in the nuclear field and get play with comics. So I took that and I threw the word. I said, it needs something else. So I threw the word atomic in there, so it became Atomic Camaraderie. And so again, hit inc.marketing. You can go there. You can offshoot to Atomic Camaraderie, which all of our shows are listed there. We're on Spotify. Like I said, we're on Pandora even. We're on iHeartRadio. If you just put it Camaraderie, you can find us all there if you want to listen in. We try to make our show where it's, it plays to both audiences, both visual and audio. Or you can go see all the streaming shows. If you go to comicraderie.com, you go to watch our episodes. You can see the whole drop down list of everything. You can see the coming soons, which the next 3 or 4 shows out. Like I said, this week's show is going to be with Mike Gordon on Tiki Zombie on the Friday the 13th release. Or you can go to NSC Live TV, and NSC Live TV takes you right to the NSC Roadshow. There's a big banner there. It's a big, it's got the feathers that come with the wings. It's basically a real throwback to Aerosmith and Leonard Skinner and that kind of stuff. Got a microphone right in the middle, easy icon to figure out. You click right on the microphone, bam, it brings you back to all the wonderful podcasts that I told you about that are part of the podcast tour. Easiest way to find us, like I said, is jump right at inc.marketing. You can ask for a solutions guide. Please do that, because that lets you know it's a 14-page booklet that shows you all the different things we offer, breaks everything down for you, and tells you how to get a hold of us. There's package pricing and stuff in there. There's all kind of fun stuff in there. It tells you about how everything works. We're very transparent that way. We've built this animal, and we like to show you what the animal can do. So we'd love to hear from you.
And then obviously, I'm just going to throw this out there, you have to support indie comics. And also, if you're running an indie comic, you need support for yourself as well. Now, if you've been doing this for 10 years and you want to go off on your own, that's perfectly fine. It's a free country. But obviously, getting help, whether that's advice or consulting or some assistance or anything like that, or just guidance, or if you don't know where to even start, obviously that could be very helpful. And that's what Inked Marketing does in a lot of ways. And I'm sure that, there's a team effort where somebody has an idea saying, hey, I want to put a cameo of somebody who supported my book in there. You guys are open to certain ideas where it's not just my way or the highway type thing. It's obviously very much a team effort. And so that's something that I do want to make crystal clear, that getting help doesn't mean you failed. It just means that, having somebody who does this, full time or most of the time, or has a lot of experience, can go a long way. And you might spend a little money up front, but if you do 5 times what your goal is, or you actually fund and your book gets published, there you go.
Yeah, that's what we talk about. I mean, we look at everything's scalable to what your funding goal is, right? That's where the rate difference packages come in. There's a basic package, an extended basic package, and then there is the premier package. So you pick, we sit down with you and go, okay, this is what package we think you need to fund this. And it's broken down by your funding goals. There's a range in there, so you can easily see where you fit. We think this is where you need to be. And, you may come in and say, you think I can get that much? You might say, well, I kind of really thought I'd get this much. We're honest about it. We're like, look, you're the one funding. We'd much rather you see you fund than set your goal up here and then just kind of skim the bottom of it and then, hit the dirt. We want to see you fund. We want to see you get in the business. We want to see you extend your business, extend your audience. We got to figure out, like I said, that's what the marketing intake is. That's why I put a worksheet out there and say, okay, are you trying to build your audience, or do you have an audience, or are you trying to play off an audience of a rock star artist? What is your goal in this? What are you trying to accomplish? And just start breaking it down, start making it realistic, and start plotting out a path, a solution on what best fits your needs. That's what we're here for. That's what we do. We do that every
And
day.
then, yeah, so obviously even just that, and it could be very helpful, and it's obviously a lot easier if you start with this before you launch, and that doesn't mean it's okay to have your comic done and then build
Right.
out the Kickstarter or have
Right.
half of it, because you guys aren't involved necessarily in the story side of it. This is all the marketing of it, meaning that your comic can be done, but then this is the Kickstarter side of it, and that's where we're going, because the comic is only half the battle. No G.I. Joe, pun
Right.
intended right there.
Right.
The
Right.
other side is the Kickstarter and the printing and fulfillment and the other stuff. So that's where you
We're
guys master that.
we're talking to a comic tomorrow that's he's already been selling in other avenues, Amazon and whatnot. Amazon's version of their comic shop and whatnot. So he's been selling his book. His book's printed, sitting there, box ready to go, and we're going to take that book and then put it on Kickstarter. I mean, they're already, so it'll be an instant fulfillment. As soon as that Kickstarter ends, they're not going to have to wait, because that's the other thing we find out in this marketing plan. Are you raising money to pay for the artist? Is the book printed? Do you need a little bit of time to finish the book? What is the reasoning behind why you're kickstarting? Because you need to know that. You need to know what you have in mind and why you're doing this. Is it just
Well,
just the book's
also,
done?
another
Or
question is, how many more Kickstarters are you going to need? That's a
right.
big question, because
Yep.
all of a sudden, if your goal is 6,000, your cost of 4,000, but you're wanting to raise 9,000, so that the next round, on Kickstarter for issue 2, you could go a little bit bigger and you have more of a cushion. That's also part of it, because all of a sudden that changes the way you do things. Because now, if
Bingo.
obviously Ink Marketing, that you have a $5,000 cushion for round 2, but you're trying to raise 7,000, because the book, again, you're trying to get more and more cushion, because God
Exactly.
forbid, you only do 6,500. That there's money in the bank to make it work.
One of the first time creators that we worked with, one of the ones we came in there and did triage to, the book raised enough money to where it actually paid for the next 2 issues. So now he's got 2 issues in the can, sitting there waiting to go. So, well, again, like exactly what you just said, when that next Kickstarter goes out, the book's printed, it's done, it's paid for. So that goes back into the pot for the next one. And then it just keeps compounding, compounding, compounding. It's kind of like when I was a kid flipping cars. I built muscle cars all my life. I still do. Take one muscle car, sell it, enjoy it, buy another one, take that money, throw it the next one. Pretty soon, I'm driving around a 68 GTO that all of its profit. So, I don't have anything invested in it other than the flips of the other cars. So that's how I got into the flipping as a kid. And that's why I started, it's like, you know what, I could do this with comic books. So
That's my battle plan, and it
there you
works.
go.
And then
It
it
does.
goes even further. But the quick position of that is, I then kick the book forward. So if I sell a $50 book that cost me 25, I pay myself back, put the 25 into a new book, take out the profit, throw it
Mm-hmm.
into the stock market, and then just keep going. So I'm not growing anymore. But now at a certain point, I have no debt beyond my initial investment. So if the
Bingo.
entire thing goes to zero, I didn't lose anything. I'm up, because all that money was producing dividends and interest later on. But that's a whole different discussion. And you need
Mm-hmm.
to speak to your financial planner if you want to do that. I am not one of those people yet, I might add.
Okay.
At some point, I'm going to get a financial planning license, and all my clients are going to be, handed a nice comic book when they come into my office.
There you
But
go.
I digress right there. I'm just going to quickly promote myself, and then I'm going to give you the final word. Obviously, buy me a coffee. My show is listener supported, so buy me a coffee, but more importantly, share it, because it actually goes a huge way, and I totally appreciate it. Obviously, check out all the links beyond just my link in here. Obviously, check out Inked Marketing. If you are running a Kickstarter, you ran a Kickstarter, you got a Kickstarter coming up, or you're just not happy with any aspect of your Kickstarter, or if you're even thinking about doing it, you could just do a little preliminary research, and it can go a long way. and also check out what's live, what's not live, because you never know what you might like as well, and you have to support indie comics. And also tomorrow I have two guests coming on. I have Sarah Richard coming on, and she does My Little Pony comics for IDW, and she does all the cool covers, so that's a big name to drop, and she's been doing it for like 8-9 years now. A lot of cool covers, almost 100 of them at this point. And then she's done like Napoleon Dynamite, a bunch of stuff. And then I have Kaya McKenna coming on, who's a professional wrestler. So check those out. And if you're catching this in like the next 4 or 5 days, they're already up on Facebook, YouTube, and wherever else you catch your live streams and all that stuff, because I'm in a bunch of platforms. And without further ado, I'm going to give you the final word.
Okay, there's right off the bat, there's a couple of things I want to mention. One of them that's running right now is not one of the ones that we started in the beginning, but we're kind of jumping in at the end and kind of helping out. It's already funded. It's a little bit different than comics. It's card sets. So if you check out Rusty Gilligan's cards, who doesn't like dinosaurs, right? So go check out his stuff right now. And it's inked.pub/The Earth Trembles. Again, that's inked.pub/The Earth Trembles. We had Rusty Gilligan on a couple of shows ago, and just an amazing career. I mean, he was right there in the forefront. If you're old enough to remember when Heavy Metal came out, the movie, he was right there. That was his debut as an artist, was in doing stuff for Heavy Metal. He's done stuff for Captain America, the First Avenger. He's done Spider-Man 2 and 3. And like I said, he's got an awesome dinosaur card set. It's all kind of cool stuff with it. Really, it's got a wooden card, which is a specialty card. Go check that out. His Kickstarter, like I said, it's an Indiegogo. It's been funded. It's at 400%. He's in his last 4 days. Like I said, we just kind of jumped in. He's become a personal friend of mine. We're just helping him out, and we'd like to see him get a little bit more in that campaign. And then if you go over to one that there's another one out there, and it's kind of interesting because RPG games and cards are even less of a funding rate. They openly admit that there's about a 30 to 33% funding rate for those. So we're like, you know what? We had a previously campaign called Nippon, and it's Nippon. We've got their first time comic funded. They're from Turkey. Awesome book. I just got it in about a week ago. Beautiful book. Oriental, samurai, the whole 9 yards. They're like, you know what? We're going to try a card game. So they have a beautiful card game out there that we're trying out for them. Again, that's the 2 that we're running right now, because we just offloaded 3. We got 3 more coming on to keep our 5, but the 2 live right now, again, are inked.pub/The Earth Trembles and inked.pub/Nippon. So go give them some love. And like Andrew says, if it's not backing, share them out, give them some indie love. It's always a help. Or like Brian, from Cheers to Comics always says, hey, drop $1, drop a share. If you do those 2 things, that helps put money in the bucket and gives them a share too. That's an awesome way to do about it. So I really like the way he says that. So I appreciate the time, Andrew. It's been a pleasure talking with you about all the different things that we do. We don't normally talk about ourselves a lot. We're normally, talking about other people and what all they do and what they can offer. So I appreciate the time to get a chance to get the word out there about how we can help creators out there. I really do.
Well, thank you for being on, and I think that is a perfect way how to end is drop $1, drop a share. And I'm not going to steal it. But I think everybody should go do that.
Hey, you can steal it. Just throw Brian out some credit there. That's what I always do. I said, hey, look, I'm going to use your line. I'm going to put your name with it. So there you go.
I'm going to leave Brian to have that, and I'm sure me and him are going to have a great conversation at some point as fellow podcasters. But where there's a way, where there's a will, there's a way. And so on that note, I believe that is a wrap.